Yes, my name is Lydia Makaroff. I'm the director of the European Cancer Patient Coalition. Yana Pelichova, who I'm sure you all know, is one of our board members as well. So if you've got any questions at all about ECPC, please feel free to go and see her. I'll leave a couple of copies of our annual report at the table up here as well. Feel free to grab a copy. And I'll leave some copies of my business card as well, so feel free to get in touch. It's free to become a member of the European Cancer Patient Coalition. If you're in Europe and you're governed by cancer patients, you can become a full member. If you're outside Europe, you can become an associate member. We have an annual congress every year in June in Brussels where we pay for all of our members to come, spend 3 days in Brussels learning what are the main issues related to cancer patient advocacy. We also produce a lot of advocacy materials translated in up to 11 languages as well. So, and we have elections next year. We'll be looking for another 7 people living with cancer or affected by cancer to govern the organization. So there's lots of ways to get involved. The European Cancer Patient Coalition was established in 2003, and like many of the organizations here, it was originally really just a working board. And over the years, as it's grown, we've developed a secretariat, and we started thinking about what is the strategy. So rather than just thinking, oh, what do we need to do next month, 2007 was the first time where the board said, you know, what's our vision for the 3 years? And so the board and the staff work together to say, you know, what are the main 4 areas that we should focus on? The first is governance. How do we build a sustainable governance model, find the balance between the secretariat and the board and the members? How do we build the capacity of our members? How do we make sure that national cancer patient organizations have the tools that they need to work? How do we influence policy? And then research, which is what I'll be talking about today. So how do we increase the role of patients in cancer research? When we looked, so these are the 4 main areas in the strategy, and we saw that one of the ways that we can increase the role of patients in research is to have a lot of partnerships as well. So we looked out there and said, what's happening at the European level? So we saw that there's the European Commission Expert Group on Cancer Control. There's the European Commission's member of the European Initiative on Breast Cancer. There's the Health Policy Forum. There's the European Medicines Agency Patients and Consumers Working Party. And the European Cancer Patient Coalition started to see if they could get seats at the table, if they could join some of these groups. And so at the national level, you might also want to look out and see, are there similar groups at the national level that you can join? These are unpaid positions, of course, so once again, you have to allocate some resources, either from your staff or your board, to participate in this. And so you have to think, well, is it worthwhile? Is the cost of my time to join this, will it have long-term benefits for the work that we wanted to do? We also started to talk to other organizations that were working at the European level. After many, many years of advocacy, the European Cancer Patient Coalition joined some of these European organizations here, such as the Joint Action on Cancer Control, the Patients and Consumers Working Party. And so when you want to think about policy and research, have a think. Do you just want to work at the national level? Do you want to work at the European level? Or do you want to work at the global level? Do you just want to work representing your own organization, or do you want to join, you know, the CLL group, for example, or the CLL Horizons group and work, you know, as an umbrella organization? Do you want to become a board member or an active member of the European Cancer Patient Coalition and work at the European level? Do you want to join the Union for International Cancer Control and work at the international level? There's many different ways that you can become involved. And so this is what the ECPC decided to really work mostly at the European level. So we started to talk to the European organizations. So we talked to the European Society for Medical Oncology and reminded them that the patients are important. For example, Bettina Rill has done fantastic work making sure that there's a patient track at the European Society for Medical Oncology. The European Cancer Patient Coalition worked with the Organization of European Cancer Institutes, the Union for International Cancer Control, and a lot of these organizations are also run by people. So in establishing these collaborations, it was really just a lot of cups of tea at first, a lot of telephone conversations and building up those relationships. So we had to invest a lot of time learning to trust each other and also demonstrating the value that patient organizations can give. And so we wanted to work in research, and we were very, very lucky because at the European level, the European Commission said that if you want to get, they had a lot of funding. They had funding for Horizon 2020, and they had funding for something called the Innovative Medicines Initiative, which actually funded UPATI. And there's a little box when a consortium is applying for one of these grants that says patient involvement. And suddenly a lot of consortiums realize that, if we want to get this money, we have to tick this box that says patients are involved. And this is what really changed for us. Once the Commission had this, then suddenly we had a lot more consortia coming to us. Honestly, at first they were just saying, look, we have to tick this box. Can we put you on the consortium so we can tick this box? And so, see if there's something like that happening at the national level as well. So if something is happening at the national level and the government is giving funding, you can either advocate to make sure the government has this box that says patient involvement, and if it does, then you can talk to the clinicians and say, why don't our patient, my patient organization, let's get involved in that. And there's still a lot of struggle with that because now we are involved in quite a few research projects, but they still tend to forget about us once they get the money. So it doesn't end when you actually join the consortium. So we are very lucky that the European Commission has stated explicitly that there is a growing body of evidence showing that patient stakeholder engagement at key decision points throughout the medicine's life cycle can drive better innovation and process efficiency and quality. So now we have this at the European level. You can speak at the national level. You can say to your national grant bodies, look, the European Commission has recognized the importance of patient contribution. Maybe you should be putting this in your research calls as well. We now have the patient closer to the center of medicine's development, authorization, and reimbursement processes at the EU and hopefully at the national level as well. So this is something that we repeat over and over, and we know that patient involvement needs to be at all stages of the healthcare. We know that individuals who are engaged in their health are more likely to achieve better healthcare. We need successful patient engagement, but there's still fewer studies and limited data available. And I'm sure, as you know, there's a lot of struggles with recruitment when you're looking at clinical trials. And one of the best ways to have better recruitment and to have better retention in a clinical trial is to have people who are actually affected by that disease involved in the design and the implementation. So there's so much expertise in this room. Here, this is the global voice of people affected by CLL and people affected by MPN. Right here, there's no better room in the world right now that has more expertise about what it's actually to live with these diseases than right here. So the value and the power that you have is really unbelievable. So remember that. Remember that, right in here, these are the world experts on what it's actually like, the true patient experience. And you cannot buy the amount of expertise and skills and insights that everyone has here in this room. And so you need to remind your national healthcare systems, your national research, and the European about the fact that patients and people affected by blood cancers are the ones that can offer these unique insights. So this is where we are now, the European Cancer Patient Coalition, with our various health and research projects. And this has really ballooned. We had a couple, about 5 years ago, we just had a couple of Horizon 20 projects, and at first they said to us, we'd really like you to be on the advisory board for these research projects. And we were just so excited to be involved in research that we said, yes, sure, we'll be involved in the research, in the advisory board. And they said, yeah, we can cover your travel and accommodation, but that's it. So at the beginning, we weren't actually getting any real funding for this. So the research organizations could feel very proud that they had patients on their advisory group, but it was actually us volunteering our time. And it's only now that we're starting to push back, and if we have consortia coming saying, oh, we'd really like you to be on our advisory board, we say, you need to pay for staff time. And we're still not quite there. So we've got 9 people in the office, 3 people are dedicated to EU health and research projects, but only 10% of our funding is for EU health and research projects. So we're getting some funding, but it's still not there. So we still have to make sure that we actually advocate for getting funding when we join these research consortia. So I'd just like to give just a couple of examples of 2 projects that we've been working on and that we're proud of, that we feel have actually been truly patient-centric as opposed to tokenism. The first is something called eSmart. It's the e-symptom management using advanced symptom management system remote technology. We've heard some previous examples from Canada about the importance of digital technology and mHealth. So this is a European system and a European clinical trial to see what if we use smartphones to report symptoms. So I'm sure many of you in the room have been experiencing a symptom after treatment, and you've thought, should I call my healthcare team to report this symptom, or should I not? My doctor, my nurse is so busy, I'm not sure whether or not this is big enough. Similarly to the watch and wait system, patients just report all their symptoms on the smartphone, and then the nurses look at the data, and then they have a triage system here. So the patient uses their smartphone to record all their symptoms, and then in real time, the nurses look at that and they think, should it just be evidence-based self-management advice? Should there be an amber alert, or should there be a red alert? And this has been a clinical trial to see whether or not this sort of reporting system will be helpful in symptom management. This has been conducted in 12 sites in Europe: Greece, UK, Ireland, Norway, and Austria and Norway. And so the European Cancer Patient Coalition was quite active in helping to recruit patients. So we've got over 400 members throughout Europe and the world, and we worked with our national members here to see if we could help to recruit patients in this. And we're also involved in looking at the patient information material, looking at the treatment schedule and the design, to see if we could make sure that the design was appropriate for patients, that the interface, if it all sort of came together and was patient-centric. It was definitely a struggle over many years to get the recruitment, but we finally got there. There's now 537 patients participating in the clinical trial, and next year, 2019, we'll have the final results of the study. And the European Cancer Patient Coalition is in charge of organising the final event in Brussels at the European Parliament, where we will then use the results of this study to then advocate to European national policymakers that you should have more medical technology and more smart technology and mHealth involved in research and in symptom reporting. Yes, as I said, the recruitment thermometer is ongoing, and we're continuing to work here. with our various members, but if it wasn't for national and European patient organizations, then the recruitment would not get to where it is. Another example is giving a patient a voice in drug development. One of the projects that the Innovative Medicines Initiative put forward is looking at patient preferences. And so this is a 5-year project looking at how patient preferences can be incorporated throughout the life cycle. So patient preferences are not something that's often talked about when you're looking at preclinical, clinical studies. It's all about the clinical endpoints. But questions like what sort of delivery mechanism would you like to have when talking about your treatment? How often would you like to receive the treatment? Do you want to go and get your treatment at a GP? Do you want to be treated outpatient or inpatient? A lot of these patient preferences are really not considered when you're developing a medicine. And the Innovative Medicines Initiative has this 5-year project to think about how and when should we best measure these patient preferences to make sure that the patient voice and patient insight is included. And then this project will end in September 2021. And Yana Pelichova is on the ethics committee, I believe, for this project. And so here, so it started, 2016. So at the beginning of 2016, the European Commission said that we're having this call. So we are going to fund a project on patient preferences, put together a consortium, put together a bid, and we will choose the best one. And so there are about 7 different consortia that put together about a 20-page application. And this is one of the challenging things for us, because each year we join maybe 40 or 50 different consortia to apply for different research projects. And this is a lot of work for us to make sure we do the budget, we do the patient involvement, and then it's usually 1 or 2 of those that gets funded. So once again, this whole process of applying for research grants is unfunded, and we have to find a way to allocate resources to apply for these consortia. And last year we applied for many different, and it can also be a little bit demoralizing when you put so much work into producing this beautiful 20-page document, and then the European Commission comes back and says, no, it wasn't good enough. But this one we were lucky enough to win, and we're not the only patient group in this. There's Muscular Dystrophy UK, the European Patients Forum, and the International Alliance of Patient Organisations. So this is another different aspect that you might want to consider. Do I just want to look at research that's in blood cancers specifically, or do I want to join a consortium and look at research that's a little bit broader? And perhaps can I join other national patient organizations in my country that aren't specifically looking at my disease, but perhaps together we can join, sort of form a more broad patient advocacy group, and then advise on particular research projects or join particular consortia. And what did we say that we would do? So we said that we would look at the methodology. So the European Cancer Patient Coalition and the other patient groups are looking at the methodology involved in the work, and then also the evidence as well. So they're involved in looking at the research and the evidence. And then we found that so this is the starting point so far. So we've been involved in looking at the evidence, and then in a couple of years, the final recommendations will come out. So it's definitely been a long road for our organisation to finally get funding and recognition. And so, as I said before, have a think about how you want to get involved in research at the national level, at the European level, at the international level. And can you join with other groups? Do you want to join with CLL or NPN umbrella organization? Do you want to join with an umbrella or national or global organization, and what specific aims do you want to achieve? And the first step, I would say, is just to reach out to the research organizations in your national country and see where you are and what sort of collaborations that you can establish. Thank you.